State possibly playing for a championship after the loss to Michigan, if that comes to that. And just having to play the three most difficult games potentially on the schedule at the back end of the schedule. I believe that the Big Ten schedulers should have enough brains to realize Ohio State's going to make the Big Ten title game 80% of the time. Therefore, we're lining them up with Penn State, Michigan, and the best team in the West 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, it's a Big Ten scheduling computer, and they say that it's agnostic. It doesn't know what's going on or whatever. Well, Ohio State certainly seems to have drawn some tough draws at certain points, and I don't know if it's a situation of where it puts in historical data of who's won the most at that point and kind of staggers it against them a little bit, but it is difficult. And, you talk about the potential of this game, maybe not of the game, not having as much importance in terms of making the college football playoff, but it's still darn important because Ohio State is still very alive for that number 1 seed, and avoiding Clemson in the first round is of utmost importance, in my opinion. I wouldn't want to draw Clemson right now. I know that for a fact. So, Ohio State certainly needs to come out and take care of business there, and then obviously take care of business in Indianapolis. I think it's where we are, not only with the conference championship games, but with the college football playoff, that we have kind of cheapened certain aspects of the schedule when you have teams that are sitting already in their conference championship game or whatnot, with a game, 2 games, 3 games left on the schedule, kind of like Northwestern was last year. I don't know if it's necessarily the best thing for the sport, but it's the world we live in at this point. But, Ohio State certainly is not going to take this game lightly for a multitude of reasons. If nothing more, other than it being the game, try and get that one, try and get geographical preference if you can, and make it to that 15th game.
Steve, somebody showed me a poll at some point this season where Ohio State fans were asked, if you could beat Michigan and not go to the college football playoff, would you choose that scenario or losing to Michigan and making the college football playoff? And still more fans would beat Michigan and not go to the playoff than vice versa.
Yeah, I don't know. That's crazy. I think you set out each season to win the national championship in this day and age. And for some people, the notion of, I guess it's become blasé, I think, for a lot of people that just accept the fact that Ohio State's going to line up and beat Michigan. I know one of your questioners on there asked if they win this one and it becomes 8 years in a row, is that some kind of record? Yes, for Ohio State, that would be some kind of record. They won 7 in a row between 2004 and 2010, although the 2010 win was vacated eventually. They have won 7 in a row free and clear under Urban Meyer here the last 7 years, and now Ryan Day takes over and will try and become 1-0 and give them an 8th straight win over Michigan, which is Ohio State's never done that. The previous record before the one in the last decade was 4 straight wins. So that'll give you an idea that Michigan, for decades and decades and decades, has had the upper hand in this rivalry. I'm old enough to remember when they had like a 20-game lead in the overall series, and right now it's like 7 or 8 games because Ohio State's whittled it down. So you never take this for granted that Ohio State's just going to show up and beat Michigan. Some of the last several games have been very interesting. Maybe not last year, 62-39, although it was a 1 or 2 point game at halftime. Ohio State just blew them out in the second half. You think about 2016, it was double overtime, I believe. Ohio State needed to pull out that game. It was number 2 versus number 3. So anything can happen. Michigan's playing its best football of the season. The last 4.5 games, I go back to halftime of the Penn State game when they were behind 21-7. They got it down to 28-21 and dropped a touchdown in the end zone that may have forced overtime. Otherwise, maybe they'd be on a 5-game run, and this game would be for the division championship. But Ohio State, with a 2-game lead with 1 game to play, has the Big Ten East all sewn up. And so I don't know. National championship and a loss to Michigan, or beat Michigan and don't care what else happens. Man, I don't know. You play Michigan every year. You've only got 6 consensus national championships in the history of the program, 8 total, including 61 and 70, which were kind of splinter championships. That's a tough one. I would probably rather win the national championship, to be quite honest with you, but I'm sure a lot of people out there would say that that's total blasphemy to say something like that, but I don't know.
I would have told you that at one point, Steve. There's no question about that. I've grown up a Buckeyes fan. I've been one for 42 years, as you guys have been as well. And the Michigan game is just beyond special. It's indescribable. But we're in a different era. This playoff has made things different. I grew up watching, as you guys both have, a lot of 2-3 loss Ohio State teams going up against 2-3 loss Michigan teams, and it being a tie for a Big Ten championship, or maybe somebody's going to go to the Rose Bowl if somebody else loses, and the Rose Bowl just being the prize and beating Michigan, and everything was wrapped up in the regular season. Now we've got this crazy playoff, and Ohio State's reached an elite status in which they've just been able to maintain that, where this means a whole lot beyond just beating Michigan in the Big Ten, and it's a national program. And going to the playoffs and winning playoffs and national championships, because the barometer is basically Alabama and Clemson and Georgia and those other schools, and Ohio State's right there. And most Buckeyes have the pride of wanting to be the elite program, not just in the Big Ten, but in college football. And it's all about the playoff, Kevin.
Yeah, it is all about the playoff. I mean, that's what we built, and that was always the fear of when we moved away from the bowl system. I mean, I understand that bowl games are still involved in it, but you know, it's not just about winning your conference and going to the Rose Bowl. I mean, sure, Ohio State fans pack the Rose Bowl those times that Ohio State goes, but honestly, I mean, a lot of people were really disappointed that Ohio State went to the Rose Bowl last year and was left out of the college football playoff. And you know, that's the time and the age that we live in. And you know, I'm here almost into my 50s, and the Rose Bowl is always going to be special to me. It also doesn't hurt that I grew up on the West Coast, so the Rose Bowl was always something that I watched, even well before that. But you know, the onus now is getting to the playoff, getting into that 4-team situation, and then getting through all the arguments of 4-8. You know, what should it be at that point? But you know, I would never want to put myself into Sophie's choice of beat Michigan and not go to the playoff, or the other way around. I mean, why can't they just beat Michigan and go to the playoff? I don't know why we need to sit there and create these no-win situations. We have a member of the beat who plays a this or that type of game with us, and I'm serious. I just want to jump off the roof of the building every time he does it with us, because the choices are just about as untenable as that.